Okay, again, welcome everyone to today's webinar, What's Limiting Your Factory's Performance? And perhaps more importantly, what to do about it. This is brought to you today by Parsec Automation, and we are the makers of TrakSYS Manufacturing Operations Management Software. Today we're going to be talking about factory performance and strategies that you can use to increase and improve your performance. And the team that we've put together for today's discussion is headed by our Director of Manufacturing Solutions, Corey Vodvarka. My name is Greg Newman. You see me here on the left. I'm the Vice President of Marketing. And also joining us today for a good walkthrough of TrakSYS is Christopher Gray, Application Engineer here at Parsec. Corey is a certified Six Sigma Master Black Belt and has led the global rollout of Lean and Six Sigma at multiple Fortune 500 companies. We're very pleased to have him on our team here at Parsec, and with his knowledge and experience, I think today's webinar should be very informative. So now that we've gotten rolling and people have had a chance to sign in, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Let's start with the obvious. If you don't measure, you can't manage. We know that. We've probably all heard that before. But let's face it, it's a little harder to accomplish sometimes than that glib phrase might suggest. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about performance management strategies. And these, of course, extend to people, to processes, and equipment. And then, like I mentioned, we will take a brief look at TrakSYS and how, as a software tool, it can really help you to optimize performance. And what we like to say is to close the loop on your operational management goals. So we'll take a look at that later in the presentation. Well, with that, I'd like to hand off to Corey Vodvarka and have him dive right into today's substance. Corey?
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you, Greg. So every manufacturing operation really strives for world-class performance. But the fact of the matter is, the majority of all manufacturers face a variety of challenges every day. Things like equipment breakdowns, quality problems, supplier delays, just to name a few. In a poor running facility, it can affect a lot of things. You know, it affects customers, it affects the shareholders, and more importantly, it can even affect your workforce, you know, affecting morale in a negative way when things are not performing well and they're challenged to solve problems. As someone who's worked in manufacturing for several years, we carry a responsibility to our customers, employees, and shareholders to deliver a quality product on time and for a competitive price. In many operations, it's a challenge to do this consistently day in and day out with the resources available. It requires us to instill behaviors and skill sets in our workforce and provide them with tools to be successful. But it doesn't need to be an impossible challenge. It boils down to a few simple steps that can be taught to anyone. Simply, what's broke? How broke is it? Why is it broke? Now, what are we going to do to fix it, as well as keep it fixed? As a plant manager, I always knew if I could prevent production stoppages and operate as closely to optimal speed and make a quality product, I could meet my customers' delivery commitments and my operational costs would fall in line. That's why OEE was such a critical KPI for my operations. By understanding where I had production losses and the root causes, I could quickly deploy immediate countermeasures and then follow up with preventive measures to make sure these issues didn't reoccur. It starts with measuring your process, though, because if you don't measure it, you can't manage it or improve it. Every day I would walk around my facility and talk to my employees. If you walk around and you ask your team, how's your day? And you get a response like, well, the weather's great. we got some work to do. They need to be taught to see waste in the process and be held accountable for the operations performance. Do your operators know the 3 biggest reasons for production losses in their area? And have you motivated them to fix these issues? As a manager, it's important to be present in the process to stimulate engagement, asking the key questions so the team understands the business priorities that they need to be engaged with. Operators can fix things in their areas of expertise, but often they're dealing with problems outside of their control. So it's important operators have a means to communicate quickly to other departments to assist with solving problems. Urgency is key. As a manager, I always stressed, you need to win the hour to win the day. That can only happen by quickly identifying when things begin to move off track, move off course, and then teach the team to take quick and effective actions. As a plant manager, I'm responsible for the success of my team. With open communication and attitude not to really dwell on the past, but look forward and focus on improvements, I know my team's always going to continually improve. It's a manager's responsibility to set priorities for the organization and supply the tools and training for the team to be successful with the challenges that arise. It's easy to get pulled away from the plant floor by conference calls, by meetings, all the things that a manager has to deal with outside of the actual factory. But I can't stress the importance of a plant manager's floor presence in interaction coaching with the workforce. This can be a team Gemba walk or something just informal, but it's really important that a manager be present on the plant floor, interacting with their employees. Because it's important to work smarter, not harder. You can do this by providing good visibility of the losses within your operation and providing the knowledge on how to fix the problems. But taking action is the key to closing the loop and solving problems.
Corey, this topic here and what we've just been talking about for the last few minutes and what you've shared, really, I think everyone can tell it's very people-oriented. This is about people producing results, right? And I want to hear from you a little bit before we transition into talking about software and how that might help, which certainly is interesting. I think it's important to talk a little bit more about how to bring together, in your experience, the people and the process so that you can achieve the results you want. It's not an easy thing, is it?
No, not at all. If you can focus on the people and their understanding and creating behaviors, it's the repetition of behaviors in solving problems that's going to make a big difference in how the plant's culture develops and ultimately improves.
Do you find that people have you been in situations before where you encounter resistance perhaps, or people are sometimes unsure as to what the benefit of some of these things might be, and perhaps even are scared of getting exposed, if you will, in terms of performance and things like that?
Sure, it's only normal that things are always changing in manufacturing, and employees that have been around a long time, they often become skeptical when the new flavor of the month comes along. So with any kind of change, it's important, again, and I can't stress the fact that enough, that the manager needs to be involved, the management team needs to be involved, showing their involvement, their presence in new objectives and new initiatives. So as you roll out change, it's important to be present and help them, understand how the process works, how to work through difficult issues, and be that coach.
Sounds like what you're saying is creating a culture where not only change, but the idea of continuous improvement is really embraced, and that it's not about being perfect. It's not about necessarily following yesterday's patterns, but to challenge and to change for the sake of improvement. And it's hard for everybody, isn't it? But
yeah, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. But the most successful plants that I've run and worked in, it involved really focusing on that cultural piece and focusing on the behaviors that need to happen to drive excellence on a day-by-day basis.
Yeah. Well, the reason I wanted to touch on that is that, of course, we're in the business with software of gathering information, helping to package that information and present it to managers and to operators so that they can take action like you're describing. But I agree with you. I think an important predicate and an important thing to think about before you embark upon any kind of a computerized system integration, whether it's TrakSYS or any kind of a computerized system, information system, is that I think you need to ask yourself, do we have a culture in place that rewards and appreciates the gathering and the responding to this kind of information? Mm-hmm. Because I want to be very clear. I think we share this opinion, and I would share it with our attendees here. A computer system is not a magic bullet. We happen to think that with the right pieces in place, a computer system can take your operation to the next level without a doubt, because of the way computers do things, and they're very, very good at doing certain things that humans are not. There's no doubt we see the results in the thousands of factories that we're in. But it doesn't come magically. It doesn't come without a lot of hard work on the part of the people who are implementing these types of things.
Yeah, the people are key, and the systems, the computer systems, are there just to make the processes and the behaviors more efficient by providing accurate data, mm-hmm. Providing it quickly, as well as providing actionable data that you can go out and you don't have to do a bunch of extra observation and analysis by collecting the right type of data that is, in fact, actionable. You can get right to work. So all that time accumulating papers and data and information and compiling, that can be a slow process. And oftentimes it doesn't happen until the end of the day or the next day when it's too late. And you've already lost that opportunity to make improvements and win that hour and win that day.
Cool. That's a great way of saying it. And I wanted to just take a few minutes to really emphasize that, because as we transition and start talking about the merits of putting a brain at the heart of your operation, as everyone can see on the screen here, I think it's very important to understand the role that such a system would play. We do believe that the kind of information gathering and reporting that we're going to talk about with respect to TrakSYS is not easy. And it's not easy because, as we all know, manufacturing is complex. There are a lot of moving parts in any factory. There are extended supply chains. There are a number of steps and processes, lots of people working, and making sure that you collect the right data at the right time and package it properly is no easy task. We've been doing this a long time, and we developed TrakSYS through hard-won experience and knowledge, thousands of deployments all around the globe. And what we've discovered is that it's absolutely imperative that you approach this kind of a challenge from a platform mentality. You need to be thinking in an integrated fashion, not because you want to roll out functionality across every area of your factory at one time, but rather you want to be very deliberate about it and roll out functionality to support strategic initiatives like Corey was just talking about. You want to roll those things out in a very deliberate and very focused way. And when it comes time for the next initiative and the next area of your factory that you'd like to focus on, you certainly don't want to have to worry about compatibility or going back and having to redo anything that you might have done in a previous rollout. And that's where a platform can be of a tremendous benefit. And so as you can see on the screen here, every manufacturing environment has some variation on this. We know that we need to gather information from the plant floor and from operations. It's going to come in a variety of forms. Certainly, we know we want to hook up to machines, and we do that by hooking up to things like PLCs. Increasingly, of course, we hook up through IIoT, through devices that are internet connected, and also, the ability to capture data using tablets and computers, and to have users log data in and capture that as well through data files. This all needs to be brought in somewhere and then combined with information from your business applications and packaged up and shared with business and operations users. So it's a bit of a tall order, and every factory is a little bit different, but we do know there's some common elements, and that's why we've chosen to design the TrakSYS platform in the way that we have. So we would like to talk a little bit about TrakSYS and how it does what it does, and why it does what it does. And for that, I'm going to ask Christopher to take us through a brief walkthrough showing how a user of TrakSYS would ask questions of the system and follow the answers that he or she receives in a very logical manner to uncover and to reveal performance issues and to begin to get to the root causes of those issues using TrakSYS and the information that it presents. So you can see here on the screen some of the benefits, and we're certainly happy to show PowerPoint slides, but what could be better than getting into an actual demonstration of the system itself? So let's jump in and do that.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg. So what I'm going to be showing you guys is a demonstration of TrakSYS and how it can work from both an operator and from a supervisor perspective. This is going to help you with the concepts of how we can gather the information and utilize operators to get that information so you can manage it, as well as how you can look through the information to find ways to improve your processes. This first screen here is an example of an operator interface that they can use to not only visualize the information that is already being collected, but use the wealth of information that an operator already has to help improve that data collection method. You can see on this screen, they're already being presented with information such as what is happening on their line. You can see when event downtimes occur, they're able to know what are the biggest types of the biggest downtime causes on their line, and have a very quick and easy representation of their current running states. They can see when their OEE is low, when performance and availability aren't quite hitting the mark, and if their quality is doing well. On the screen as well, operators will have opportunities to increase the information that you gather. They'll have the ability to see when events occur and to be able to provide additional information. They can act as a check to ensure that the automated data that you're gathering is in fact correct and make any adjustments necessary when it is not. Additionally, operators can be prompted to provide other information that they may have. You can provide them with things like tasks to say, when job starts, I need you to provide certain checks. I need you to take certain records. I need you to do hourly checks. And this information can be presented on other screens to help facilitate the management of your information. Let's take a look at one example. Over here you can see a task labeled as the red hour log. Anytime there's an hour of performance where your OEE drops below the acceptable threshold, in this case you can see on my KPI that is a 40%. Whenever it is below that threshold, we can have it generate a task that prompts an operator to explain what happened in the process. This is a very simple task, allowing them to select a specific reason for why they were below OEE that hour, and they can provide information relating toward the corrective actions and reasons for that type of downtime. This type of information is easily prompted to an operator and does not take a lot of time for them to fill out, but this can be used in a highly beneficial way to be presented to supervisors later on for the purposes of improving a process. Let's take a look at another way an operator can interact with information. As Corey mentioned, one way to improve a process is to win the hour to win the day. This is an example of a daily board, probably familiar to something that you may have in your own facilities. This is another version of the same concept where we are providing what they should have produced at any given time of day and how much they actually produced and showing variances. This provides clear indications of when there were bad hours, as well as when you are ahead or behind of your production schedule. For any of these hours, you can provide the same type of information. In this hour, we have a negative value, so we're prompted to provide a variance reason and a corrective action. Let's spell that correctly. Waiting on material. When this information is recorded, you can save it and have it associated with the records that you record, and then, similar to the previous screen, have it presented for supervisors later on. So let's take a look at the information now from a supervisor perspective. A supervisor may have something like a dashboard that allows them to see all the information of what's currently going on their floor. This will have similar information to what you saw on the operator screen, but be adjusted and presented in a way that is more beneficial for the management by exception. You can see all the information of the OEE, of the current job, but you can also see previous jobs. You can see failure causes, as well as what your operators are saying and how your performance is throughout the facility. In this case, you can even see at the top, there is the red hour log that I just recorded, stating we are waiting on materials just shortly before. This type of visualization and easy access to the information makes it easy for communication between operators and supervisors. A supervisor can see when there was a bad hour, see what the corrective action was, and determine if they need to take any additional actions to ensure a properly running facility. Additionally, there's a lot of other information that's collected in context within TrakSYS. This is just one example of potential information that an operator or supervisor may find useful. Well, let's take a look at a full drill down report to see just how much information we have. Now imagine you're a supervisor and you wanted to go and take a look at the last job that you ran. I'm going to select the top job here, and we're going to go through a full overview, trying to look for some indications of poor performance. Looking at this, we can see all my job information and nice visual breakdowns of all the KPI values. You can see color-coded when I was at my targets, above or below, and I can very quickly and easily identify poor performance hours. Additionally, on the right, I already have a very quick way that I can determine any trouble problems, such as there's an extensive number of downtime on my labeler specifically. I can already tell specifically for label jams, and I can see that there were some issues with labels transferring. This can already give me some quick ways that I can go and address an issue and dig down farther. Now let's say I wanted to look at more detailed granular information. Each of these sections do have the capability to drill down into them. If I click on OEE, you can see the same OEE information for the specific job, broken down by hour, allowing me to further look at my information. I can see individual hours, click them, and visualize the details, and I can drill down farther as necessary, looking into any of the individual categories and the individual time breakdowns. Let's take a look at, for example, performance. My performance is currently at 60%. If I wanted to improve that, I can use this information to determine what my biggest causes of downtime were. I can already see here that label jams make up the majority of my losses. If I need more details, I can look at the performance loss time breakdown. I can see my label jams here, and if I select it, I can see the individual events themselves. In fact, I can see at the bottom, I had two causes. I had one label jam that lasted for 40 minutes almost, and another one lasting a full hour. This gives me a clear indication that there was some error or some issues with my labeler that I would need to address, and I can reference any of the other information, such as the journals, or I can go and talk to the operator directly to determine further actions that may be necessary. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Christopher. I appreciate that walkthrough. I hope, I know that there's a lot in TrakSYS. I hope that everybody, thank you, got a good sense from that brief walkthrough as to what exactly TrakSYS does, why it exists, and how it helps. I will point out to the group that TrakSYS is a platform with many solutions. These solutions, as you can see on the screen here, have been devised over many implementations, and we have best practices, as Christopher just showed for performance management. We have best practices around all of the most popular and useful solutions for manufacturers. And in some cases, like in the case of performance management, we have highly structured solution frameworks. Now, these solution frameworks involve the type of content and the type of functionality right out of the box that you saw in Christopher's walkthrough. It's important to point out that whatever our best practices might be, we know that you and your factory, your needs are going to be slightly different than another factory. And the flexibility built into TrakSYS means that you can deploy solutions that are configured to suit your needs in a way that is very customized to your factory. And we do it with web-based tools. Of course, there's always advanced scripting as well. But as our solution, TrakSYS, has matured, we've added the capability to deploy and manage these types of complex solutions with the kind of simplicity that hasn't before been seen in this type of software. And it's very exciting. It means that we can do more with less. We can go further and go faster by keeping things as simple as possible. Like I had mentioned, we have been doing this a while, and we do it for lots of companies. Many of these companies you know. You can see at least some of the logos here on the page. We are in thousands of deployments. We're in over 100 countries. I think it's 108 countries now. And we do serve companies in a variety of industries. If you have a challenge in your factory, chances are we have addressed a similar challenge somewhere else. And we would encourage you to reach out and talk to us about it, and talk to one of our partners about it, to learn whether or not TrakSYS and how TrakSYS can benefit you. Here's one example of how TrakSYS has helped one of our customers. I like this example. I'm not sure if I like it just because I like the dog, but it's one story of many, and we have stories like this in abundance. You can go to our website and learn more about them. The thing that I think is so compelling about Bush Brothers and the story, what we've done to help them, is really how pronounced and how specific they were able to get with the results. And this speaks to what Corey was talking about earlier. When we got together with Bush Brothers and we talked about our solution, they were really prepared as a company, culturally and from the leadership perspective, to really embrace what we have to offer and what a computerized system like TrakSYS has to offer. And that's a good part of the reason why they were able to achieve some significant improvements, and why those improvements, and you see the report of it here on screen, why those were so specific, because they went in with very clear objectives and a very clear understanding of how their factory works and what they're trying to achieve. So a fun success story, and we have others like it, and it's all based on knowing what you're trying to achieve and being very clear in your objectives and clear in what you're asking of a system like TrakSYS to do. So we hope that this brief walkthrough has been useful and helpful, and that it's answered some of your questions regarding performance management from a strategic point of view, and perhaps the role of a system like TrakSYS in helping you to achieve these things. We'd like to open it up for questions at this point, and answer any questions that you might have. So please feel free to type questions into the webinar interface, into the chat box there, and we'll be happy to answer them. Give it a minute here to populate while I look through the questions here. I have a question about documentation, and I'm happy to answer that, I'm going to sort of answer that in a large way, but the broadest way possible, because it speaks to something I was just talking about a moment ago, which is solution frameworks. We have extensive documentation, not only on TrakSYS in general, but on our solution frameworks and on best practices for setting up solutions to address virtually any issue that you might encounter in the factory. And that kind of documentation is critical in our minds, and it's something that we offer to all of our customers, and of course our partners do as well. They have this same documentation. Our goal is to make TrakSYS a system that you can deploy and manage in a way that does not disrupt operations. It's not one of those types of projects like I'm gonna bash ERP a little bit. Anybody who's been through an ERP implementation knows what I'm talking about. Those projects tend to get a little bit big, a little bit out of control if you're not careful, and sometimes don't measure up to the expectations and the promises. We have learned how to avoid that in manufacturing operations management, manufacturing execution systems, and we do that with our platform and its modular approach. And good documentation is a big part of that. I see another question here about energy management. Corey, why don't you talk about energy management and how it might enhance OEE? It's an interesting question.
Sure. We have capabilities to measure and manage energy within the operation. I've seen a lot of applications in this. I've worked in foundries and in heat treating type operations where utilizing power and energy is a large majority of the cost. And by tracking usage and correlating those things to different processes and the efficiency, you can save cost as well as you can increase the productivity of your processes in many cases. So kind of general question, but if you want to reach out to us and talk a little more specific on your application, we'd be happy to go a little bit deeper, but there's certainly opportunities to enhance your OEE through energy management.
Cool. I see another question asking about training and what kind of training we have here. As it happens, we have Christopher Gray in the room. He is one of our trainers and does work with folks on training classes of different types. Christopher, talk about our training a little bit and what people can expect.
So the training classes, they can be hosted either at Parsec, or if you have a large enough group, we can always bring them to you. But essentially, going through the training class will get you a full comprehensive overview of a lot of the different functionality of TrakSYS. As Greg showed in some of the PowerPoint slides, there's a lot of different modules, and we'll touch on every single one of those. The wonderful part about the training is you get to see it from both a prospective user as well as from a developer type view, as much or as little as you would like. There's the way you can see it from a development perspective as well as how you would actually use it. And depending upon who's in the class, there's always time to be able to show how this can affect directly towards an implementation or idea that you have. So it's flexible enough where you get to see how it's used in other implementations, to see how it would apply to yours, and how to build it. So at the end of the class, you're guaranteed to have something of value that you can bring back to your own facilities.
Very cool. Yeah, we host training here at our headquarters, and like Christopher said, we do have training through partners and at remote locations, and it's structured in such a way that we have beginning and advanced style training, and so there's a course for everybody. There's another question here. It said that I mentioned the word closed loop before, and Corey, maybe you can talk about, TrakSYS as a system to help close the loop. As a manager, regardless of TrakSYS, right, you know you've got to close the loop. That's just a term. How does a system like TrakSYS help in that regard?
Sure. There's a lot of systems out there that can measure, that's almost commoditized to some extent. But the important piece is really taking action and closing the loop. And a lot of that ties on employees understanding a process for closing the loop, and then again creating those behaviors to follow that process as rapidly as possible. So Chris showed a little bit about how we can quickly identify red hours, identify downtimes, provide the analysis for what are the top issues pretty much continuously throughout the day. So they know what the top priorities are at any moment of the day, what needs to be resolved. And by forcing those behaviors with what we call tasks in TrakSYS, we're scheduling different types of tasks, whether it's responding to poor performance through the red hour, or quality control type tasks that need to happen periodically throughout the hours throughout the day, to really implement controls around the process. So we're not only forcing the behavior of analyzing the data and taking improvement steps, but also stimulating those controls that are going to help you really sustain those gains over time.
And along those lines, Christopher, there are notifications. There's notification functionality built into TrakSYS. Talk a little bit about that and how it can reach out and help with this.
So as I mentioned, one of the benefits of having information is being able to get it to the people that you need. So TrakSYS does have a notification system where on any type of trigger that you would like, so whenever a job ends, or if someone completes a task and it's a failure, or if someone forgets to complete a task and it goes past the due date, you can have a notification sent out by the system to alert you to those changes. It doesn't have to be just a notification saying something went wrong. We can provide all the information that you have in the system when that notification goes out as well. So we can show, hey, yeah, there was a notification of a quality SPC sample failed, but we're going to give you not just that, but the entire list of here's the last 10 points, here's what the trend chart looked like, and here's the operators that were involved that you may need to talk to get more information or more details. And here's a link to the software to let you see what they saw and what's going on the line now, even though you may have gone this 30 minutes later. So there's a lot of data that can be provided, and with notifications, you can make sure it's provided immediately, even if you're not staring at a computer screen.
Very cool. I see another question here. It's very specific. I'm going to read it off, and it says, what does it cost and how long to implement for a small shop, let's say 50,000 square feet, 40 pieces of equipment, 200 operators, 3-shift operation? Thank you very much for the question. It is very specific. It's a little hard to quote that, obviously, without knowing a little bit more, but I will tell you, we do work for manufacturers of all sizes and in all industries, and so my guess is that we can put together, or one of our partners can help you put together a solution that fits nicely. And I will say, and I'm a marketing guy, so excuse me, but I'll say this, I'm going to make a little promise to you here. It probably costs less than you might think for this. So I would encourage you to please reach out. Let's learn a little bit more, and we can talk to you about the nature of your operation and what you want to do with TrakSYS, and then we can put together a package that fits your needs. All right, so thank you very much for those questions. I know that there's lots to cover in a webinar like this, and we can never cover everything we might like. If you have questions and you'd like to learn a little bit more, we encourage you to go to our website. You can see it here on the screen at www.parsec-corp.com, or reach out to us using the email address sales@parsec-corp.com, and we'd be happy to engage with you. If there are no further questions, then we are going to wrap this up. Again, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Corey. Thank you, Christopher, for being here. Appreciate it, and look forward to talking to you all soon. Bye-bye.